This is the Daily Wealth Junkies show. I'm Brandon Dukeman here with Will Harvey, and thanks for joining us today for another daily episode of the Wealth Junkies. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening to, and rate and comment so that we know how we're doing and so our guests have a good idea about how much you appreciate hearing their stories. And join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Wealth Junkies. And with that, Will, I'll let you introduce our guest for today.
Yep. Thanks, Brandon. Today on the show, we have Dr. Rachel Headley. She is the founder and CEO of Rose Group International. And what they do is they have a framework for helping teams. They help build teams within companies to help those companies grow. So Rachel, with that, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can you just give the listeners a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Rachel, I'm going to cut you off real quick. You are our first doctor on the show. So.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it come with a prize or some kind of giveaway?
Yeah.
I would think, right?
Yeah.
Send it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't disappoint me.
Yeah. We'll figure something out.
We'll have our people contact your people.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Perfect. I love it. So yeah, I have one of those crazy backstories that are starting to become more common. And that's, I have a PhD in geography, which is my aerospace was my vertical. So I actually went in as an image scientist, studying how humans change the planet, looking at imagery. And then I discovered, like many of you, I'm sure, and many of your listeners, that I was not really cut out to do the same thing every day. Like I looked around at all these amazing people that I loved and respected and admired, and they loved it. They dug into it. They built their careers on it. And I was like, oh God, this is not gonna be for me. So I did that for about a year and a half. Then I went off to get my master's degree at Knoxville at UTK. And I started working for United Nations office. And then I went back, got my PhD at Penn State. And so I built this like career in the sciences, even kind of knowing that maybe this wasn't even going to be a thing I was going to do. And so then that was kind of sad. And so I wish I could, the thing I would love to impart to your listeners is be really aware, be paying attention to, do you love doing something different every day and people call you the squirrel of your friend group and all that? Or are you like, do you like that routine and you thrive in that environment? Those are both right. Those are both okay, but you can really get mismatched easy by what you think you should be doing.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because some people need that routine to really function and
structure.
And then other people, that drives them crazy. Waking up at the same time every single day, doing the same thing. That's a great question.
Drives us all crazy,
yes.
Right. So after getting my PhD and kind of going back to that image analyst, I've been moving up the chain in the federal organization, higher and higher income and more responsibility. But at the end of the day, it was still that sort of routine stuff. And I loved the message and the story we could tell with satellite data, but the getting there was it wasn't suiting me. So I ended up making the jump over to the operational side of the mission, the Landsat satellite mission, and supported the 40,000 user community, all our NASA science partners and federal science partners and private and federal research partners. Yeah. 26 international ground stations. We are the longest, we are still, I say we, the longest running civilian program in the history of the world and the galaxy and all that stuff. So it's pretty awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It was a very cool gig and it was crazy
like
and different all the time, but at the end of the day, after about 7 years of doing that, which was amazing learning experience and the team was incredible. And I still adore all those people. I just wanted a new challenge. So I started working for myself around how you actually get things done with teams. Because I feel like there's not a systems way to think about your company. You're doing a great job and Brandon's doing a great job and Will is struggling today on getting the schedules done or whatever. But there's no way to figure out how you make all these people work together. And that's kind of what my passion is.
Huh.
And so did you, go ahead,
I
Will.
was going to say, how did you realize that that's a passion of yours? Because I'm sure that's something that you have to figure out from doing something else.
Well, yeah, you're right. Because, what happened at Landsat, I was a part of the mission management team, part of the federal government team when we transitioned from, so in the whole history of the mission, we were charging money to use our data. So at the end, for the very highest level of processing, it was thousands of dollars per picture or per image, which was about 100 miles by 100 miles. And but what we saw happening is we knew that the biggest barrier to using our data was this cost, because we had people all over the world telling us we would use this so much more if we could get access to it. So we lots of reasons, but we ended up migrating to a no cost model, no fee model. So we ended up giving the data away, and we knew that would be about a 1.5 year project, because you have to re-architect the entire back end. It's basically in a big IT shop, because we were distributing 100 images a day, and after we went free, we distributed 25,000 images in a day. So we had to totally re-architect the back end, spin everything at a certain level to help with the processing side of it. And we're going to lose $5 million in sales every year. And
I was just say, how you guys make any money if you're just
right?
giving it away?
Well, we have, as a federal agency, we have federal appropriations. So we have a base level of money.
Okay.
And partnerships and that kind of thing. But that still $5 million is not,
Right.
It's
a lot of bread.
Yeah.
It is, especially for a team that size. So we knew, the technical team, so I'm a scientist in this huge engineering team that was just incredible, but they knew they were going to have to lose people, re-architect everything, and lose money, which is a lot of humans. And so it was I saw them go through this crazy transition of, and frankly us too, by their side of, oh my God, this is going to destroy the mission because we can't absorb this kind of loss, to figuring out how to do it, coming together. And then they became this incredible ass kicking. Every hard problem, they just stepped up bigger and bigger. And we ended up releasing on time, no bugs, because we're operational 24/7. There's no Microsoft release and then 3 weeks later you have 1,000 bugs and so you have another dot release. That is not how this shit works. And so I saw the team go through that, and that's how it really got me really sort of geeking out about how you actually make these. We were accidentally, they were great, and we as a leadership team probably accidentally did some good things, but so many people did bad things. Not in our team, but we saw in other teams, they were falling apart. So I was really curious why our team seemed to really work and their teams were not. So that's kind of how I got interested in it.
Wow. And so you just got excited from how you solved that problem and put it all together. And that's what ultimately led you to figuring out that that's your passion.
Yeah. And I'm kind of, and I'm a very team driven person. So one of the things that we did is kind of create this, when people get into stressful environments, change, transition, uncertainty, they retreat to their corners. And so one of the corners I live in is I'm very team driven. And so I need desperately deep in my core to have people around me and and me to help them. That's just part of my DNA. So, so that's part of it. And I saw these other teams not working and I'm like, what are we doing that they're not doing? And then I got out into the world and became a consultant, and some of the things that I was trying to roll out weren't hitting and they weren't taking it the way I thought they would. And what can I do differently? And so, it really kind of started there and became this interesting wormhole. And plus I'm very practical. I was in the trenches and I read some books, some theory, and the theory didn't freaking work. So
that's why it's a theory, right?
Right. Translating the theory into practicality was really impossible. So I really wanted to, and I partnered with Meg Mankey, my co-founder, because she's HR and was in the trenches in mining. And so we're seeing the same problems from underground to outer space.
Yeah.
So if we can freaking solve this, we can help everybody. And so that's kind of so it's what we do is very practical and applicable immediately. And that's one of the reasons people love it.
Yeah. Well, give us some of that. I feel like we're talking about here you were when you were at that company and there's Meg, and now you guys are doing this awesome stuff, building these teams. Give us kind of the nitty gritty on what did you do to form that partnership with her and just realize that you guys were a good fit, had good synergy. And then what were some of the first steps in starting the business and leaving that job?
Yeah, well, leaving the job was pretty easy. There's a lot of push factors, right? I got to stand on top of the rocket of the latest launch, Landsat 8, 2 days before it launched.
Wow. In
the mission tower. And that was the launch tower. That was incredible. But I saw, anyone that sort of was in the teams knew that we were going to have to merge that Landsat 8 development team, that dev team, with the operational mission. And I was living away from the office, and that just seemed like too much to navigate. And plus, I've been doing it for 7 years, and I was ready for something.
Yeah, you're just bored.
Yeah, so that way I could get out and be okay. But I worked actually on my own as an independent consultant, just kind of with all my contacts from the satellite space for about 4 years.
Okay.
And then I realized that I wanted to do more of this change transition, because me as an individual, I can only do so much, and I wanted to play much bigger. And so I ran into Meg. So the nitty gritty of it was we had like minds. She's always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never did. I was never motivated in that way. Like I never wanted to be, I'm just not profit motivated in the way that I assumed everyone that went into business would have to be. And so I connected with Meg. She's really entrepreneurial, ranch kid. She's been riding horse, literally still brands cattle with her dad.
Wow.
She's been riding horse since she was 5. So she's a millennial, but she's been working 10 years longer than the rest of us.
Wow.
And but it's not easy, because I knew inviting her in meant that I had built a company, and then she was going to get to come in and just kind of take advantage of all of that sweat and hard work and blood and tears and panic and 2 a.m. falling apart stuff that we all do.
Yeah.
But she was just going to kind of get to walk into a company that was already established and working.
And get equity.
And I was all 50-50.
Oh, wow.
Because we basically started a new company together. So I went from doing sort of aerospace, geospatial consulting into, we're going to focus on this new baby that we've made together, right? And so she worked with me on the IP while she was still getting paid a huge salary at her previous job. And even that was like, I'm killing myself, working for myself, trying to make ends meet. And she's making this huge salary and getting huge bonuses. And so there was a lot of
she's got that safety net, that cushion.
Right. And
you don't have.
Right. And she stayed on her job until she got her bonus. Even though she was planning on coming on board like months earlier, or we had talked about her coming on board months earlier, but she decided to stay. And I'm like, so that was like, dude, that was a lot at the time.
Yeah.
But I was like, I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was worth waiting for. I was making good money. Like, it wasn't like I was destitute and eating ramen. That was not a thing. And that is one thing too that I want to share with your listeners, because, the ethos of being broke, not having no money, and being an entrepreneur, and that's how it has to be, is totally BS.
Completely agree.
100% agree with that.
We went into it. We were both single moms at the time. We both have kids. This is not a thing, and houses and like grown up cars and, things. And we could not pay ourselves. Like that is, so if we couldn't create a company where we could pay ourselves immediately a living wage, it was not going to work. And so that is one of the like basic, listen, if this isn't going to work. And to be fair to Meg, one of the reasons she waited to come on board is she landed a big client that would fund the company. And so then she felt much more comfortable coming over. So it wasn't like she was just being like, well, screw you, I'm going to do this. It was really about how do we build this company?
Right.
But it wasn't without its stresses. And we just had to talk constantly. Like, listen, what is this going on? What's happening? I feel like you're prioritizing your bank account over our company. I feel like I'm fighting all this, struggling this way. And so it was, and at the same time, she's going through the big transition of, listen, I've got 2 little kids at home. I need money in the bank. I can't give up all that just to come over 2 months earlier. We're in this for the long haul. So, we had to really work through all of that.
Some tough conversations.
Yep. And they're not tough if you have them all the time.
That's right.
If you wait until everyone's pissed,
then it's really tough. Yeah.
Then it's tough. But if you have them like literally, as soon as you go like, that really pisses me off, and you have that conversation, then she can see listen, this is what's going on for me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can see that. So, you really have to just talk. You can't wait until someone's pissed.
Communication is so key in sports, business, life, marriage. It's so key.
human.
I like that you bring that up because we haven't interviewed a whole lot of people that necessarily started something with partners. I mean, they have, but they haven't really spoken about those types of issues and hard conversations that they've had to have. And like you said, if you have them more often about things that piss you off or something like that, then it's not a hard conversation. It's just a normal conversation, but that's the real life of starting a business with another individual, another, entrepreneur or somebody else. And, it's not always success stories, especially in the beginning, because, there's a lot of stress. Like you said, you're single parents and you got to make sure that you can put food on the table and keep the house over your head. So that's,
Yep.
Yeah. And I had an experience years ago where I was starting this venture with this guy, and him and I were so similar. We were both sales, not detail oriented one bit. We both had the exact same approach to everything. And we couldn't get anything done for that reason. You got to find somebody that balances you out and has strengths where you have weaknesses, and then you have vice versa, where your strengths are their weaknesses. So is that what your partner brought to the table, and kind of how you guys complement each other?
Yes and no. So in our world, we have a spectrum of chaos. That's us in this room, chaos to order. So we are both on the chaos side of the spectrum, but the difference really is that we had different sort of intellectual back ends, but wanted to solve the same problem. So in that way, we were able to really sort of quantum leap the intellectual horsepower behind the solving of problems.
Okay.
But what we knew right away is that we sucked at that other stuff. And so we started on our own, but very quickly we did things like, the first thing we did after she came on board full time was besides delivering our consulting to clients, was we wrote her book. Well, this is not a thing that chaos people do. We just, it's not happening. And there's not any way that you and I are spending hours and hours and hours.
Describe a chaos person. We were talking about that before the show. Describe that just so the listeners can understand that.
It's probably everyone that's listening to your podcast.
Right.
Chaos people like new challenges all the time. They like to walk into the office, and if there's something new in their inbox that they've never heard of before, they might see it as hard or scary, but they'll start seeing opportunity in it right away. There's, the opposite, the order tolerant people are people that if you're not on their calendar, a week ago, they're going to push you out a week because they don't want to move somebody in it. Mm-hmm. They already have their lunch planned. They don't want to have a meeting.
We all know those people.
Right. But the hard part about it is that we need those people. Chaos people need order people. True. And order people need us, because if you all have order, think of the federal government, or that's a great example. Those are the people work for the federal government who are attracted to long-term good health care, good retirement, stability. So you self-attract those people. Mm-hmm. Chaos people are if you think NASA, right? Chaos, stable people, stable aerospace engineers want to work for NASA because they know they have a job forever. Chaos engineers, they go work for SpaceX.
Right.
We don't even know if SpaceX are going to be around. SpaceX is sexy and cool, but they're so far in the red. They don't even know if they're going to be a company in 10 years.
Right.
But they don't care. Chaos people don't care. They'll go work for Elon and be like, oh my God, I get to work for Elon for 6 months.
Exactly.
So that's the difference.
That's funny.
That's the difference. NASA, SpaceX.
That's cool. So you mentioned that in addition to you guys, you had, I think if I didn't hear this correctly, then just let me know. But I think I heard you say that you brought on some funding. Is that right? Okay. So tell us.
We didn't.
No. Okay.
It's all bootstrapped.
I thought you said that your partner she landed a client.
A client that would fund the company, would pay for the stuff. So we're all bootstrapped to this point.
Okay.
Because we have big networks, we know people, our shit is good. It's not a software kind of development scenario where we know we want this huge, beautiful thing. We're actually doing that now, but we didn't have to develop this huge, beautiful thing before we could start making money. I mean, we always kind of smile about the pre-revenue phase, right? Because we're for us, there's no pre-revenue phase unless you go chase money. And then if you're chasing money, you can't work and there's no money coming in except, So we skipped all that, and we actually sold consulting support services to basically test our IP. And so after doing that for 3 years and getting all of it kind of figured out and in a happy place, now we're building out the prototypes and the software platform so that we can build a consulting / SaaS model so that we can actually start making that SaaS, SaaS money, that's scaling that you have.
What is SaaS?
Oh, sorry, software as a service.
Software as a service. Okay.
So think, SurveyMonkey, I pay $9.99 a month or whatever for the rest of time.
Yeah.
Because now I have all this information in there that I never want to lose. That's what the SaaS model is. So that's what a lot of us are trying to get to. Right?
Yeah, because that's where you build the worth of your company, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's something that has value and kind of, I don't know if that's your goal to be bought, but that's something that you can potentially do. That recurring revenue from like a subscription-based thing, that's key.
Yeah, and it's I think Warren Buffett, everyone quotes Warren Buffett, but it's something about you got to figure out how to make money while you sleep, right?
I love that quote.
Yeah.
I know, me too. And so right now what we did is we took the slow roll in the sense of on the scaling part. And I mean, we are in the black, we're hitting our marks every year for growth, but we're growing as a small business essentially. And now we're kind of over that phase. And now we want to grow into a really big company. And so now we're building that SaaS model, that software model that we can actually blow it up big. And but we've got all the details sorted out.
What are some steps that you're taking to do that? And imagine you're talking to a dummy, because when it comes to all that stuff, you are talking to a dummy right now. That's me.
Well, the cool thing is that because we've done the consulting first, and people get the power of what we do and exactly the ways they want to use it. So in this week alone, I talked to 2 investors who, and not in an investor, hey, spend money on me or invest in me, like, hey, this is what I want to do. How do you see it being applicable in your space, right? In your vertical. And so they were both of these guys were like, oh my God, I need this so much. We can't live without what you do. We have to figure this out. So that's the first thing we did was we built something that people desperately needed and nobody else is doing. That's a win. The second thing is that, so now what we're doing is I happen to have, as a client of mine, I have this really awesome software development company who has been through a few rounds of funding. And so this CEO founder has about 8 people on his staff. And he hired me as an executive coach to help kind of navigate, how do you get this team to work together, right? And so, and he's so cool. And he's in Toronto. They have such a great startup space ecosystem there. Mm-hmm. And so I went to him and I said, and we talked about, hey, how would we build this out as a piece of software? And so I have a colleague now, he's going to help me walk through this process, which is the first thing you do is you figure out why you need it. What's your minimum viable product, right? So what's the core smallest thing you can make to have people understand what you're trying to do and they get what the value is. So that's really hard for a lot of people because you want to do the big sexy, but you really need just the little acorn that's going to grow into the tree, right?
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah.
A company?
Totally. Yeah. So what we do, so this big sexy thing, what will eventually happen is you're going to have a dashboard on like a web application where you're going to look at every single one of the people on your team. They're all going to have an evaluation that says, this people love change, this person hates change, this person wants to work on their own, this person loves to work in teams. All of that stuff is going to be embedded behind these avatars. And then you're going to be able to drag and drop people into a bucket that's going to it's going to give you a scatter plot of like, okay, well, so Will is super chaotic and maybe Brandon is a little less so. And what that means is they're going to make a good partnership because Brandon's going to make sure shit gets done if Will is off squirreling on something.
Yeah.
So you can actually in real time do scenarios of if I group teams together, these different people, why are they going to fight? What are they going to fight about? What's going on with them? And how can you make it create an environment where they can thrive, right? So that's the big sexy thing that everyone wants. What I'm making is what we're building as the prototype is the minimum viable product is we have a very simple assessment. And so you're going to be able to take the assessment, and then you're going to get a report card that says, okay, well, you're independent. That means that you love chaos and you like to work on your own. And here's a scatter plot of where you are, because it's a quantitative assessment. And then click here for more information about that. So that's the essence of it. And you're going to be able to put maybe 3, 4, 5, 12 people on your scatter plot, but you're not going to be able to drag and drop and do that scenario stuff. All of that's the big sexy, but you get the power of it in this little piece. And that's the difference.
Got it. And that's the minimum viable product, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I got to ask, how did you become you seem really business savvy, and you said eventually you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but it seems like you kind of have the understanding of how business should, kind of start and grow into something. Where did you learn kind of the business aspect of a business?
Yeah. Just, school of try and fail, I almost said hard knocks, but I thought that was too old.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
Gen X,
I love that quote.
Gen X, hard knocks.
Yeah.
No, really, a part of it is, so in the satellite space, I learned, I'm a project management professional, which is a certification you can get after you are a project manager for, God knows, 10 years or something. Well, I think it's 5. But that project management trains you to look at giant projects, even from building a house to, whatever, a satellite program, and break it down into doable pieces so that you can actually track. Yeah, you can actually track, objectives and how you're doing on those objectives and what pieces are failing. Now, I really suck with system engineers, the how do you track these little pieces of buckets of things over time? And really big mission, like the mission I was on, I don't even know, had 180 objectives it was tracking at any one time. Like,
wow.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that is.
For me. But
that makes my head hurt.
Right. Oh, me too. Totally. It was terrible. And I don't remember what the exact number is, but there was a lot.
Right.
And so, but for me, project management, the gift it's given me is that now I can see these big projects and break them down into the pieces. And so it's a little bit of just the way that your brain works. And some people can really compartmentalize things better than others. And it's training. My master's degree, I had these big ideas about what I wanted to do. And then I had to learn that if I wanted to ever graduate, I had to actually only talk about a tiny piece of that.
Right.
So understanding how one piece fits into the whole is really, it's not really business. It's really, well, I guess it is. You can apply it that way, but it's also science. It's also management. It's also, all those other things. So it's a bit of, I'm very logic driven. I love logic and how can I move this and move this and move this here, and actually it works better. So that's part of it too, is I just love that sort of logic analysis, systems thinking.
Yeah, like if this then that type of. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so basically you're saying you don't need to have necessarily a business experience to be able to be an entrepreneur or business owner. You take the bits and pieces that you learn from different parts of your past and you put those together to make what you got.
And you self-evaluate all the time. I mean, the revenue generation, hard thing to learn for someone who comes out of a company who's never done it. How do you take what you know and what you think is your genius and package it so other people want to buy it, and how much do you sell it for, and what's the value of what you have? There's so much mindset work when it comes to making the jump into entrepreneurship, that knowing who you are, knowing what you suck at and what you're great at, and knowing that I can do spreadsheets and sales tax and all that. That's not rocket science, but I don't want to do that. And so I have a CPA that I pay a couple hours a month just to do that stuff, and so I've done so much training. I've paid to be trained on packaging my information and program development, and I still suck at marketing, although I suck less than I thought. That's part of what you learn as you try and fail a bunch of stuff, that you're like, oh, I was really close there, but I just need to tweak it, and it actually resonates with this group better. And, you have breakthroughs all the time, because how I think is not how you guys think. And
absolutely.
Our backstories are different. And so what I found out is when I talk to CEOs about hiring us for work, I talk about our M&A experience or mergers and acquisitions, because that is, if you work in mergers and acquisitions, you're not making shit up. Like there's no joke. Like, you know what you're doing. And so, cause that's big money, it's big egos, it's big stakes. And so when I started talking about M&A work, then they immediately reacted differently.
It's like, go on.
Yeah,
That's basically how they are.
Exactly. But if I start talking about, using let's use your people, and your people are important, and they're just like, whatever, you're like, an HR group, right? Like, you're a group hug kind of, trust fall person. And I'm like, no. But how do you get over that perception and understanding how people think and see of what you do? That's a lot of just trial and error. And I don't care how many marketing experts you hire. They're going to miss the mark. You're going to miss the mark for a while until you kind of narrow down what it is and how they respond and who your target market is and who's going to buy your shit. And man,
Right.
it's just, you have to be curious and willing to learn, period. I don't care what else, but
yeah, I love that. Read books and listen to podcasts and look
Invest.
at people that are smarter than you. Always
Yes.
one of my favorite things, the kind of principles that I have is surround myself with people smarter than me. I mean, that's something I've always tried to do. And it's been good. So,
and it's not always smarter than you, because that can be super intimidating. But what you want to do is surround people who have achieved things you haven't achieved yet.
well, that's what I guess
mean?
smarter is a broad term.
Right.
And I don't necessarily mean they have a higher IQ
They're
than
actually
me.
smart. Right.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
some of the trap, is that people think, so-and-so is so much smarter than me, I can't do that. Well, that's not true. You are, as well, I think, Will, but for people generally, you are as smart as anyone else in that room.
Yep.
They've just figured out how to play the game better. And that's the piece that I'm always chasing.
Good.
Very true.
That's the piece I'm always chasing.
I love that.
Yeah.
So normally I'd ask, where do you see yourself in the future and business wise, but you kind of explained it a little bit. Is there anything else? Do you have a time frame that you hope to build out the big oak tree?
Yeah, my big sexy. Well, I think what's going to happen is, because Meg and I are very chaotic, we don't do things for like really long periods of time. So really, we know this about ourselves, and it's all dynamic and been really challenging. But I think within 3 years, we will be ready to sell our IP or portions of it to the really big, where I think we're going to sell to is a really big competitor, like those IBMs of the, computer world, that's not ours. Ours are like Accenture and Deloitte and Bain Capital.
Those are still really big.
Those
names.
are huge, but what'll happen is that our shit is better than their shit, and they're going to start finding out, and we're actually going to start competing. And so I think that's who's going to buy us out. And that'll be fine. We're excited to sell. And
so your goal is to sell. Nice.
And we won't sell the company. We'll sell off portions of our IP. And so that'll let us keep doing whatever we think is.
Yeah, you can start creating new stuff. And
what is IP again?
Intellectual property.
The
things that you create for yourself that nobody else has.
Okay.
And then you convince everybody they need your stuff more than the others.
Yeah, that it's valuable. And
that's right.
Yep,
so I think we have a 3-year time horizon for selling some IP, which is for us is a long time. And we keep constantly telling ourselves that it's okay. We can do 3
Yeah.
Right.
But no, it's a new phase, right? We're starting with this prototype and building the big sexy tree. And so that will be a new chapter, a new adventure in the company. So that'll feel like something new and different. That's what's going to keep our interest. So
yeah, I was going to say after 3 years, the next 3 years will be coming up on almost that 7-year mark of where you were at the old business. And
right. But 7-year itch is a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe start yawning a little bit and get that itch to do so. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Got it handled.
That's funny. Well, we are going to jump into our Moments of Truth segment here. It's the same 7 questions we ask everybody, and we're just going to get it started with the first one. Who is your success role model?
My parents, as weird as that is, they moved when I was 9. They moved to California, where my mom's from, Sacramento, quit farming, moved to the big city. My mom was a minority as a white girl in her school, and then she moved to the farm in South Dakota. It was total culture shock. And then we moved back there, and they really were able to pivot several times growing up to make our lives better. Never had a lot of money, but we never went hungry. And so I really take my like sort of scrappiness and willing to try whatever it takes to be successful to them.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. What is your biggest success?
Being a single mom and figuring out how to raise a great kid while putting the hours in I need to make a company work.
That's
Very cool.
huge. Yeah,
that
I
is
think
huge.
there's probably people out there listening right now that are in your situation, or were in your situation, and I couldn't even imagine having a kid with parents, another a significant other, let alone raising it on your own. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I have a great boyfriend now, so I call
There
him
you
my
go.
hashtag my dreamy boyfriend is what I call
Nice.
him.
Awesome. Perfect.
That's awesome.
So what's a typical day for you look like, Rachel?
Well, it's actually most days it depends on where I'm at. I spend about half the time on the road. So if I'm off running, it's, you wake up in the hotel room at 5 so you can get a little work done. Then you're having back-to-back meetings all day. And it's mostly client meetings, potential client meetings, networking, because people don't hire us to take care of their teams unless they know me personally. So it is all on the move, on foot. And then when I'm home, it's a lot of hanging out. I get to I go have a massage on Tuesday and I get to sleep in if I don't have a meeting.
Hey, that sounds
and so
like
it's
the life.
It is, and it's not that I don't work. I mean, I was up till 1 a.m. last night doing email and prepping for calls this morning at 6 a.m. local time because I work with East Coast people. So it's not that I don't work, but it's really, we figured out a way to have our company survive and thrive without destroying us. And it actually leans into the way we want to live and be. So
that's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that can burn you out real quick if you're not cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is, I don't know all the details exactly, but it's essentially the feeling is that you are who you surround yourself with. So if there's 5 smokers in the room, you're the 6th one. If there's 5 people that ride their bicycle 50 miles every Saturday morning, you're going to be the 6th one. If there's 5 millionaires in the room, you're going to be the 6th.
Yeah.
So who do you surround yourself with?
That's really good.
I like those examples you gave though, because some other people have said similar quotes and not really elaborated, but like you said, I like the smoking and the bicycling one. It's true. After a while, you'll turn into a bicyclist, and that's
right.
awesome.
If your friends all go to the bar and don't work hard and just waste time and blow their weekends doing stupid stuff, partying, then if you hang out with those kind of people, naturally you're going to get sucked into all that. So that's good.
That's right. And it's really hard. I mean, we're just so social creatures that it's very hard. And in fact, people, you hear people say you have to leave behind the people that don't suit you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for people, especially order tolerant people.
Mm-hmm.
We're the chaos people, and we can have those conversations with our friends. And I've actually had that with my best friend from high school. I had to say, every time I called her, she would say, yeah, that must be rough going to Milan for the week. When I was excited, I got this gig in Italy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, I can't every time I call you, be made to feel guilty about my success. So
right.
We need to figure out a new way to connect, or else and that's a hard conversation even for me. And I'm super chaos person. So
yeah.
It's really hard so you don't have to break up with your friends. You just have to find ways to hang out with the people that you want to be in a different way. You can compartmentalize those two worlds, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
I feel your pain on that one. I deal with that on a daily basis. So it's tough, and you don't have to break up with them, but like you said, you got to find more ways to hang out. You got to find
your people.
Yep. Absolutely. So what are some of your hobbies?
I like to read. I like the escapism of reading. I like to hike. I work out. Working out is a magic tool. If you don't do it, not you, but your listeners don't do it. I don't care if it's walk around the block at lunch, like getting out and have just fresh air and being outside. Whatever I can do outside is cool with me.
Yeah. Love that. What's the best business book that you've read?
So glad you asked. I prepped for this question. It is it's a great book by Corey Lorenz. It's called Fearless Leadership. She was the first woman F-14 Tomcat fighter pilot.
Wow.
And the cool thing about
It's like the Top Gun thing, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And she's smart and fun and sexy and awesome and hilarious. But the stories in it are like, when you read a good business book, there's stories that accompany the lessons, and so you can relate to them. And the stories in this book are freaking out of this world. And
Really?
it's really,
Awesome.
yeah, it's a really readable book, and that's why I really love it.
What was the title of it again?
Fearless Leadership.
Fearless Leadership. Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, she's got a great Instagram account. So Corey Lorenz is her name, and she's awesome.
Yeah, check that out.
Nice.
See if we can get her on the show one day. We'll see.
Yeah, you should. I know her pretty well, so I'll have to.
Oh, is that right?
Hey.
Okay. Yeah. And last question here. If there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
Believe you can do it, and be willing to work hard to do it, and be aware of what is just busy work and what is actually moving your company forward.
I love that.
Because I can be busy 24.
Yep.
I got a PhD in 2.5 years. I can be busy all the time, but in business, a lot of that busyness doesn't actually make you a success. So that's a key thing.
It's just wasted time and effort.
Well, it's not wasted.
Whatever.
It's building something. Usually it's making your website more amazing, or it's making whatever it might be more incredible, but it doesn't put money in the bank, which is what you need to.
So I guess I would reframe that. There's an opportunity cost.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
If you're not making money, all that work doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're wasting time. So, like you said. But Rachel, how can our listeners get in contact with you? I know you mentioned you do have a book out there.
I do.
What's the name of it, and where can people find it?
Yeah, the book is called IX Leadership, stands for Internal Experience, kind of a play on CX and UX. In this, UX is software development, user experience, and then CX is customer experience. So we do internal experience leadership. It's on Amazon in every version, Kindle, Audio, Audible, all of that stuff. But if you want to connect with me, probably the best way is on LinkedIn. Super active out there. All links to all my talks, my TEDx. I got to talk in front of 12,000 people.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome!
That was incredible.
That's a lot of people.
That is. It was
that
so
nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it's freaking terrifying.
Yeah,
but also the most exciting thing.
Yeah,
that's
it was
cool.
So big. The venue's so big that I couldn't see the back. I could see these tiny little red lights that I knew were the exit lights. But my face was on the big 20-foot jumbotrons, and that was
unreal.
Crazy talk. So all of that stuff is on my LinkedIn profile. We're really active out there. I answer all of my messages personally. Happy to chat and connect with you out there. So Dr. Rachel M.K. Headley is where you'll find me out there.
That's awesome. Great. Well, for our listeners, reach out to her if you got any questions. She's a load of knowledge. We could sit here and talk all. Blowing me away. It's awesome. I love it. So, and for our listeners, don't forget, subscribe to our show so that you're not missing any of our episodes, and join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. Again, Rachel, we appreciate you being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yep. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.